Hi everyone, welcome to our Stop and Chat episode. Today we have a very exciting guest, someone that has been in the remote space for very long time. Welcome, Shahin. Shahin has built and managed remote teams for over a decade. He was a CEO and founder of RemoteTeam, who was working to solve HR and operational problems related to remote work. Gusto, the largest payroll operator likely in US, acquired RemoteTeam in 2021, and now Sahin is working currently on distributed team products at Gusto. Welcome, Sahin.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Like remote is always special for me. I always look after remote. I have an alert when there is a change in the website. I read every blog post that you guys have. Probably served all the pages.
Thank you, and I think it's we could go here and share compliments because
Yeah,
clearly
yeah,
the work you've been doing is astonishing,
yeah,
and clearly pushing for the remote agenda and for the remote
yeah,
modern ways of working at a player like Gusto. I think it's super impactful, and given especially given our partnership with Gusto, we are
yeah.
two very large players pushing for this freedom of work. Um, Going a bit into today's questions, you've been doing this for a long time. You have a history as a founder, working with startups, investor in startups. What traits or principles do successful remote work companies have that others don't?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, a more unknown fact about me is I am doing remote, and it will sound crazy, since 2000. And we had at that time ICQ, Skype. I had teams at that time. I was located in Turkey building e-commerce websites, and I had teams. Always, I have a security person in Russia. I had a lot of people in Europe. I had engineers in Pakistan and India. It was a very different time then, because we didn't have real time collaboration. We didn't have Slack. We didn't have other things. But I am. I was always a remote guy, like core. Like I never want to go to an office. I always thought it's the prison of mind, kind of. I always like to work remote. I encourage everyone like to work remote. So there is, in the long term, I realize that first of all, of course, not every business can be remote, right? So I will only look at from the software kind of business, like tech businesses, because there's so many businesses like can be flexible, and there's so many businesses out there in millions they can't be remote. But as a software engineering, when you look at it, in its core, it's a async tool, like Git itself, who was developed by Linux, right? Linus, who was the founder of Linux. Git, as a core of the software of how we build software, is total async. So the whole software world can be async. And what I see is some people like to go to office, like to socialize, like this, like freezer talks, like, and there's some people like me. I don't want to go to traffic. I want to work with my pajamas. I want to wake up. I can be in the same room or another room, but the time I saved and the time energy I saved from the traffic, from that cortisone chaos, I like to put that productivity in the work, right? So there's two types of people that I see. There's people that are very compatible working on remote work, very compatible working on async, and there's people who would love to go and have a meeting of 10 people, don't like to have async work, they want to do sync, they want to have the phone call, and they want to talk with you. So I think when we are building remote companies, like I always ask these questions: do you like to work in an office? Do you like to come to an office? And I learned this from the Git Labs, and which was the Jobs I think, inspiration in GitLab. GitLab was a fully async company, and they had these handbooks, and they have these interview questions that they ask to see someone is compatible for remote work. So all of anytime I build a company, anytime I build a team, I always focus on people who is dying to work remote work. So that is, I don't hire people who's already working remote. I mean, in the past, but always, okay, I don't want to go to office anymore. I want to full focus on like working remotely. I want to be in my pajamas. And this was always technical companies, tech companies, of course.
And how do you see also the like recent graduates? Usually, it's a team like, oh, how do they get into the work environment? How do they learn the principles of working? How do you manage that? Because I imagine you hire at all levels. How do you manage
Yeah.
that?
So that's a great question, and um, we still think the mindset of like, okay, we had an office, and then in the office you socialize, you learn a lot of things. But I always tell people, like, you have so many relationships in life to your mom or dad or sister you don't see, and you do it over phone, right? And you still can build a lot of emotional connection, coaching related connection, through the phone or through Zoom, right? We don't need to see people in the office. Like, that is totally a mentality before the remote work. And I think the new generation that is coming, they are growing up into a remote world. Like, if you look at the COVID, most universities return to online, and people didn't go to. The graduates says that, I didn't really need to go to the school or a university. But that time, okay, you save a lot of time not going somewhere, but in that time you can put that on your personal development. And when I think people are more happier and more have a work life balance, I see that they become more successful in their life, as their careers. Because I really over, this sounds crazy, but I am coding since I was like 8 years old something. So I code more than 30 years. I mean, this for 30 years. It sounds crazy. And what I see is the people who love what they are doing, like passionately love what they are doing, they outpaced everyone out there. And it's not they need to socialize or not. It's really the time, the heart, the energy, the spirit they put into the work, right? So, and and I see that if they have a good work life balance, they always outpaced everyone. So if you working remotely, you can still socialize, you can still learn a lot from the peers, you have more time. And right now a lot of companies are in the between stage, so there is flexible work, right? So people go in 1 or 2 hours in the 1 or 2 days in the office. I really like that model. So you do your work and you really go to work to socialize with people, develop some ideas, and have some meetings one to one. And there is also a cute part of it too. So that flexible work is sort of like flexible office and home balance. I think is a good balance for companies and newcomers to do. So I in Gusto we encourage people to come to office few days a week. The teams can meet on site and off site. So, and we see the benefits of two worlds. So the good thing is we combine these two worlds.
And what are some of the management issues that you see happening again and again whilst managing remote organizations?
So for me, when you ask a management issue, I will say like it's not related to remote work or anything. It's just a classical management, right? What I see is when you are building a remote team, of course you are not seeing the person in front of you. So there is no hierarchy, or there is no person that, oh, where are you at 8:30? Okay, you cannot leave early than 5:30, or if you want to go to a dentist, you have to get a permission, right? So these things uh, is actually, in my opinion, is in remote work there should be a very trust based environment. Okay, the trust is the absolutely the thing. And when you have someone who is not developing the trust, or the trust you give to them, they are not giving you back the efficiency, the creativity of the remote work life, then I think you end up having problems in general. So, what I do for always the junior engineers and the junior team members, I always suggest them to use time tracking, time efficiency tools, not to track the time and give it to us, but really learn how much time they spend on Google search, how much time they spend on random websites, how much time they spend on the other things. So when you ask me what's the problem of remote work, for me there's no problem. It's actually so good. I think going to office wearing shoes is more problematic to me than working from home.
Definitely, definitely align. You mentioned earlier hiring questions and how you
Yeah,
proceed with interviews and
yeah,
try to get that passionate individual. One of the key roles that I believe exist in this, well, in any company, but I think it's very, very critical to build that trust is the head of people or
of course.
the leader of HR. Um, when you're hiring for these individuals, like what factors do you consider to be the most important for these individuals?
Yeah, for and in Gusto, I also in my previous company, um, a head of HR or your first HR person is extremely critical because she's or he is or them um, that person is really your advocate, right? She's the first line of defense. They are talking with the people, they are hiring the people, communicating your values to the people, right? And um, they trying to present and promote also your company. So when you get a top-notch individual, they select your company over another company, right? So that person, in my opinion, at least in the early stage companies, the early HR per people, um, needs to know the culture and help you to drive a very good culture. Like example, remote teams, remote culture is amazing. Like Gastor's culture is amazing. Everyone is so nice. Everyone I met in remote during the integration and before is everyone is so nice, smiley, helping each other, right? Because the values of the company are applied through every person that we are hiring in the company. So that HR person really needs to embody the values of the company, the values of the founder and the company DNA together, and really go and seek and let's find the best people, right? So the thing that I look at it is I also want the HR person, at least in the early stages, like you are 20 people, right? That person needs to know like every company, every individual, sort of their character, their weaknesses, there's pros, there's their cons. And then when they are finding another person, they should find someone complementary or they find someone to improve the efficiency of it, right? And now, God bless, we have GitLabs, remote handbook. Like there's so many resources out there when you are building a remote team, how to do that.
Touching on a bit on the culture side, and you mentioned earlier the family anecdote that you don't
Yeah,
always see them, but they still influence you, and they're still connected with your family
yeah,
despite being on the phone, FaceTime, or wherever it may be.
yeah.
Um, what tips do you have, like quick tips that you have for new founders, new folks building companies, new HR leaders into nurturing a culture in a remote environment?
Yeah, these are good questions. So first of all, I will tell my things as a founder. So uh, when I look at the team, the initial hires that a founder needs to do, first you need to really find humble people, okay, happy people, because I think humbleness and happiness actually affects the creativity more than we think, in my opinion. Because when you look at where the art comes, it's always like in nice places. Okay, there's struggling artists, of course, they struggle for a very long time, but they also sort of satisfied and fulfilled with their life. Um, and then it's really not hourly work. Okay, the founder comes, okay, it's remote work, he doesn't control, he doesn't see, like he doesn't know where is this person. But when you build a trust, like good KPIs, I see people deliver more than we were expected to, right? And I see this all the time in my life. You hire a great person, okay, it's also not a more, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And when you build that a great culture, that is, I think, the company's vision and founder DNA and the team DNA coming together, it always works great. So they have to really find people. Some people look for friendship, right? They want, okay, I want to have a person because I will work with this person for hours and hours. It needs to be a likable person. I need to like this person. I need to, that is great. For me, I look at people that is knows the topics that I don't know very well. So we can build a good team. So there's other groups of people that, okay, we, it's like a soccer team or it's a volleyball team. There's the front, there's the back end, there's the middle, there is the players who set the game, there's a player who's the forwarder, right? So you can also build it in that way as well. So you find the people that is not complementary, the complementary to the skills you don't have. Sometimes in life you are looking for skills that is um, that you need to, you need to speed up, accelerate, right? So then you find people that is so good on what you are doing as well, and you work together and you do things faster. But this is more like skill in the core. I always look for someone that if I go out together I can spend hours with that person. So interesting, very different hobbies, but happy person internally, like smiley happy is always my sort of number one things that I look. And I really see that um, when you have people who doesn't need to ask for a dental appointment, but because you give them a great environment, I see so many people work in the weekdays, so weekends, because there's a deadline, right? So it's really trust, happy people, smiley people. I always tell people there is work life balance. Like your company is not your life, it's part of your life, it's not full of your life. So and I see these people in the long term are happier and successful and stay with you longer. So like combination of these, uh, based on your stage and based on what you are looking, you can find great people.
Awesome. This was a wonderful conversation.
Thank you
Very,
so
very
much. Thank you.
exciting
Thank you.
insights. Thank you
Thank
for your input and thank you for sharing your experience with us and our audience today.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. This is great. I really, I think so many people are learning from remote, from Gusto on how to build better workplaces. And what you are doing is really going to the collective mind of humanity on how to work.
Hope so.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.